Welcome to the Security Cafe podcast.
Welcome back to the Cybersecurity Cafe, your favorite corner for cybersecurity insights served with a shot of humor and a sprinkle of wisdom. I am your host, and today we are unwrapping a New Year's edition. Last year ended with quite some geopolitical tensions, and I'm actually quite surprised that sovereignty was not elected the word of the year. Again, I'm joined by our regular storyteller at the table, Quint Ketting. Welcome. And
Hey,
another
everyone.
special guest, another colleague, seasoned advisor, CTO, technical expert, Koen. Welcome.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Can you do a short introduction, Koen, on yourself?
Sure. My name is Koen, as you said. I've been in cyber world for more than 25 years. I accidentally started my career as a hacker on NT4. Yeah, that goes back a very long time. Uh,
I think
I'm
we can shake hands on that, Koen.
Yeah. But I'm a Linux adept, so I prefer open source software over closed software. That's also been, let's say, the story in all the activities that I've done. Like I said, I started as a ethical hacker, but soon I transformed into doing projects, securing e-banking environments, developing our secure architectures. And at some point in history, something came along, what we call today ISO 27001, but in the beginning it came around the corner as a British standard, and that's how I rolled into governance. It was called BS 17799, if I'm recalling correctly, and the BS is not for the regular BS thing we think about, but it comes close from time to time. Um, and that's how I ended up doing both parts. But of course, I love technology. I've always had a passion for it, so I stayed with one foot in the grave of technology throughout my career.
Cool. Well, again, welcome. Today we are going to talk about geopolitics, about digital autonomy, about sovereignty,
Why
anything
would you
around
want to
it.
do that? Why would you want to do that?
Well,
We
last
only
year
have half
ended
an
with
hour, Menno.
some tensions, and not diving into the details of today, but it's something about Greenland, something about the Middle East. You know, I think everywhere, each corner of the world has its own challenges, but that tension is definitely something that businesses and clients that I speak to are worried about. What should I do? What is actually a possibility for my company to be more autonomous, to be more sovereign in the things that we do? That's a topic that comes up at my clients for months, and especially in the last few weeks, a lot of clients talk about it. So, what's your experience? I know you guys talk a lot with clients as well. I'm pretty sure that topic comes up. How can a company go into getting more autonomous?
Yeah, before we can answer that, Menno, and yes, it pops up in every occasion. It did pop up a lot last year, but it wasn't necessarily with priority, I can tell you, right? It was
Yeah,
like, it's on my mind. I need to
yeah.
consider it. And I think, I don't know what happened. I didn't watch the news for 3 days. Yeah. And I think that says it all. I, of course, didn't watch the news for 3 days. Yeah.
Mm.
Because geopolitics, yeah, the area of geopolitics is starting to look like a soap opera. Yeah. If you know what I mean by that. And I don't mean like it's going, it's like, you know, boring stuff or it's about dramatic stuff, but it goes everywhere, right? The moment you think you know what the outcome is, well, we are going to prepare and face off. Yeah, it changes it again. And once you are trying to adopt to that, and I think this should be one of the words we should be putting on the parking lot for this episode, the word adopt. Yeah, I want everybody to keep that word in mind, because I am a sole believer that because of the soap opera, yeah, and the soap opera phrase is, I'm using it to try not to make people look foolish, but really there's a lot happening, but what are the real things that are impacting, right? And that's why I use the acronym for a soap opera, because you can look at an episode and a lot is happening, yeah? But if you don't look for a month, usually the red line of the soap opera is still the same. You can still hook into a soap opera.
Yeah.
And I make that parallel happen to geopolitics at the moment as well, because if you go into everything that is happening right now, you could be very worried every second of the day today. And I
Yeah.
don't think we need to do that. Yeah.
But what in that sense, you can look at an opera, look at a soap, and just enjoy other bodies' challenges, so to say. But right now, you have to do something as a company to prepare for, right? We always
Absolutely.
say, get your hygiene in order, get this, get that, right? But also be able to respond to threats happening. And this is sort of a new threat, isn't it?
Yeah, I think uncertainty is the new normal.
Yeah.
And we should live with that. I was having lunch with a customer last week, and he asked me, Koen, what do you think about the evolution of war? And to be honest, war is a heavy word to use. I don't think we are at war at this stage, but we will be in this hybrid state of emergency perhaps for the next decade to come.
Hmm.
And I think if we
Agree.
look
Yeah.
at the zero trust concept, assume breach is something we have to live with nowadays more than ever before. And companies sometimes don't even know that they have been breached, so let alone that they are able to prepare to have an assume breach approach in their organization. Second to that, I think what is your exposure level outside, and are you aware about the threats that are being directed to you? This is something we see we haven't been looking at very well in the last years. We see exploits in the wild and 0 days being heavily abused by governments. And of course, that will not slow down. That I don't expect.
No. No, and I think in the preparation, because I liked starting with the prepare, start to prepare, and in order to prepare, it comes down to understanding a few bits and pieces, right? It's about understanding the geopolitical landscape and how it applies to your organization. But not limited to only that. You need to apply it to what is it you do, what motives could people gain out of that. Yeah. So if you or your organization, and I still have difficult because most of my time in security, I've spent a lot of time also in commercial clients, right? So therefore I say companies, but there's a lot of organization, especially critical infra. So that's why I'm talking about organizations. Yeah, that could be company, could be government, could be anything. But it also then comes down to, okay, what do I have already in place? What do I need to protect? What is my purpose? Yeah. Also looking at society. So I would, in order to prepare, you need to understand. Yeah. Would you agree with that, Koen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we discussed a few weeks ago, you phrased it very well. Who are you as a company? Is a question many of us can, as a person, even not really answer, because we tend to answer on the what we are doing and not to who we are. And these are vital questions in order to survive. And I think that boils down, if you speak about the preparation part, is what do I want to do when I'm under attack? What is it that I'd like to continue? Because we need to be very clear. If I look at BCP plans from 20 years ago, it was we'll have a full set of hot standby equipment, and we transfer the whole IT. I think these days are over. We need to be selective and put priorities on it in order to respond fast when we are under stress.
Yeah,
So does
I
that then
fully agree.
mean?
Oh, sorry, Menno.
No, so what does that mean, Koen, if you have to make choices, right? Because a lot of organizations have very complex IT landscapes, OT landscapes. And if you pick something out that you would like to continue, you probably need a finance system here that is connected, another IT system there that is connected, because otherwise the HR data is not incorporated in your SAP system and it doesn't work either way. So how can you advise clients then? And what do you say if to make choices on what to continue? How do you make that choices and where to ensure the cutoff is that the system can run on its own?
Yeah. What's your minimal viable company? And that's for each and us different. There is no one or silver bullet for this to solve. It will be different for every organization, but yeah, production is most of the time the most important, and then next to that probably distribution, because you don't want to pile up the goods and stack it in your warehouses. You want to get them shipped out. As long as you have tracking for that, you can still bill afterwards when the systems are there. Come back to HR. Is that important? Is the recruitment process at that point in time the most important? Most likely it is less important than delivering goods and keep a healthy stream of income afterwards. But of course, it depends the organization. If you're a people business, HR might be more important than just delivering the goods you produce.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's vital to put another dimension on it, right? So it's not only what you want to keep on working, but it's also what you need to keep on working, which has to do with your role and your purpose in the society. So, for instance, if you are a health insurance provider, yeah, you have an obligation to pay people when they have something when something happened to them, right? So that's a legal thing you also need to adhere to. So if you haven't considered that, and I'm pretty sure that the insurance companies, because they are in the business of risk, they have considered this, but I think we need to apply all these simple things that aren't so simple, as you mentioned the example of how many people can actually explain who they are themselves. Yeah. Try and do that in your organization, right? And then ask these many dimensions like, what is my purpose? What do I have to do? So what do I have to do in order to keep on earning money? Or is there something next to earning money what I also have to do because there's a legal obligation because of who I am? And put all those things and try to understand those things. And that will give you a very good picture where you can start in your preparation. We're talking about how to prepare, to identify what is this actually is you need to be doing in order to protect all of that. And there it's becoming, of course, another dimension of complexity comes down there, because you also then have to look at, what do I already have? Is it working for me? And so on and so on. But back to the geopolitics, right? Because we're talking about how to prepare. But I think in order to prepare and to understand, you also need to kind of have a radar, what all this means for me. So yesterday there was a good example, I think, that because of a situation, I don't have to explain the situation, some government representative with a lot of authority in the world, all of a sudden decided, I try not to be political, not naming names and all those things, all of a sudden said, if you don't give me what I want, he wanted something, I'm going to make you pay 10% extra for your exports, to my country. And when that happens, you'll from a business perspective, all of a sudden, that means that a lot of the things, if you're a goods making company, you make cars or computers or whatever, you're shipping to the to the country that, I almost said the word there, of the country. I was supposed to do that. Everybody knows who they are anyway. But anyway, if you want to do business with those people, it could mean 10% up. Means for some companies, I have to close my business even,
unless you have a product that they still buy, even with a 10% increase, right? Because it's on the buyer side in the end.
you have to look at that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's still,
Yeah.
I think, an easy one to overcome. But imagine, Quint, you and I, we had a time where triple dash was considered equal to weapons, and you had to ask authorization to use triple dash. Imagine we start outlawing some of the tools we use to protect and safeguard our data, privacy, etc. That it becomes a weapon again and being outlawed in certain countries, which I see happening, especially if we look at the crooks that try to rule the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we take that example, right? We all are in cybersecurity. We tend to work with a risk based, etc. Right? We've seen incidents, we've seen disruption. How does this experience in the cyber field can help businesses actually overcome some of these challenges?
Well, that's a difficult question, but one is we need,
It is.
we need to be. Of course, we have been used to being under stress a whole lot of time, and many of the CISOs are under pressure almost the entire time of their career. I think there's something to learn for the other ones, that pressure is something you have to deal with, and stress as well. But stay cool. I mean, don't change immediately your plans. The world changes, but that doesn't mean your strategy and vision has to be adopted all the time. The tactics and the operations might, but keep your vision as close to reality as possible, of course.
Yeah, back to the red line in the soap opera analogy that I used, right? So the red line needs to kind of stay the same unless there's real good reasons to change that red line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I learned from a retired general. He said, "Look, in the army, we always make plans, Koen. We have a plan for everything, for every circumstance. And you know why? So we don't use them when there is a crisis." And he said that
Exactly.
just because we know the plan, we execute, but most of the time there's something coming along your way and you need to adopt your plan. The vision is the same, protect the country.
So
Yeah,
I hear
exactly.
three things popping up all the time. I'm hearing prepare, I hear adopt, and I think it also comes down to respond, right? How do you respond to a situation? Because as you said, right? Have you seen the movie Pulp Fiction? For
Yeah.
any chance? It's
Of
Quentin
course.
Tarantino movie. We normally have a session in the podcast that we talk about. Okay, do you recommend a movie? There's a scene in there with Harvey Keitel coming in as Mr. Wolf. There's dead bodies everywhere, and he comes in as the cleaner. Yeah, and the first thing he does is go sit down, and he said, "Bring me a cup of coffee and lots of sugar in it." And everybody is in panic. And he comes down, and the guy comes again, and he says like, "Okay, what to do? There's dead bodies everywhere." And he sits down. Sit down. Give me coffee. Lots of sugar in it. And that's exactly the thing. Okay, this has happened. Yeah. Maybe it has happened in a cyber incident a long time ago. Yeah. And you weren't even aware that you were under attack. Yeah. So let's sit down. Yeah. Don't panic and look at the facts. Yeah. What do we know? What do we need to know in order to be able to respond? And then back to the red line. Do we need to adopt our approach or not? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. I hear sometimes the response is turn off everything until we know what's happening. I do not know if that is a good or a bad decision, but in many cases it doesn't work. I mean, you can't just shut down supply chains like that. So your strategy definitely needs to be a bit more than just panicking and shut everything down.
I think it depends, of course, on the type of attack, right? So where time is at hand. So for instance, ransomware, data leakage type of attacks, that's where you will have to respond quickly and decide quickly on certain things. But if you have a elite hackers group, a nation state sponsored elite hackers group inside, yeah. And they're not targeting data or anything else. They are targeting your IP or something. You have a whole different ballgame. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So if I look at that, right, adopt, prepare, respond, that really sounds like a sort of we've discussed it before, a sort of PDCA cycle, right? It's just something you continuously do, you continuously improve what you are doing, and you make new plans, adopt plans, etc. Understanding who you are, what you do, your minimum viable business is really important for that. But how does that entail in cybersecurity then to let's say frameworks like, hey, you just mentioned ISO 27001, into NIST frameworks and all those other frameworks. How does that then get together with actual controls? Is this more of a governance area that we can put into the governance sphere of NIST, or how do I need to look at something like that?
I'm sure you have an answer for that as well, Koen, but I'm looking at it in two ways, right? So all the frameworks you just mentioned, they're control frameworks, yeah? So they give you controls, which is more or less a guidance on what you need to have in place, yeah, for each of those steps within those frameworks, yeah? What those frameworks don't do is, for instance, they basically governance is key. Yeah, you need to have a governance. You need to demonstrate you are in control. What it doesn't do is look at it from a cyber resilience perspective, right? So in the Netherlands we have, or in the Dutch language we have a lovely word for that. We call it weerbaarheid, and I still haven't found a good English word that fully covers that particular word, unfortunately. Otherwise I would be using it. And so we still stick on resilience, yeah? And resilience is basically the key of keep on running your business. Yeah. And all these frameworks, they are cybersecurity frameworks, and cybersecurity, and that's what people need to understand, is there to prevent incident from happening or basically becoming unmanageable. Yeah, it's a very different scenario. Resilience is there to protect your brand, your organization, and everything to it. Cybersecurity focuses more on making sure a digital attack doesn't happen, and if they happen, they don't disrupt that much. That's the big differences between the two. Now, I do believe, though, that the steps that are written in those control frameworks, you can actually use also to determine first, what I need in order to become more resilient, and also to determine what do I have already in place from a control perspective, and how well are they working for me. So you can use a lot of those things and combine them. But I think it's two different things, yeah, we're talking about. Would you agree, Koen?
Yeah, I agree. Of course, you can apply it like plan, do, check, act if you like. But what I like about prepare, respond, and adopt is that it speaks. It's clearly what is expected within cyber, regardless of the controls that you put in place. So plan, do,
Yep.
check, act says something about how you work, but it doesn't say anything about what you're doing. And this combines a bit the two. That's what looks positive about it. Of course, these controls like ISO, NIST, and all that, they are very useful and needed. What they miss a bit is they're focused on effectiveness. Am I doing the right things? Yes, you are. You are installing identity and access management or two-factor authentication or EDR or something like that. But am I doing things right? That's efficiency. Nobody speaks in these frameworks about how efficient these tools are implemented. Hopefully,
Exactly.
with a process and a methodology, you are not only improving the effectiveness, putting the right controls in place, but also in the right way. That's something we're missing, and we need to focus on that as well. And I think if you combine both, you can get there.
Yeah, I agree. And if you talk about effectiveness, right, it's not just how well you have implemented it, but also how well is the control working. So test that as well, right?
Yeah.
If you think it will help you do X and Y, yeah, make sure you test that it actually does X and Y.
Exactly.
And that will also tell you not just if it's implemented correctly, but also is it meeting the target result that I'm after.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think we need to throw either way overboard. No, we need them to combine them, and that's where the strength
I
is.
don't think. I think this is a good discussion, but I think also in the beginning, what does the ever-changing geopolitical landscape means for you? I think it really starts with the first stop, right? How prepared am I? Yeah. And start doing that. And I think it's a good way of starting to tackle the ever-changing geopolitical landscape that way.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I believe, as I said in the beginning, if you as an organization are able to adopt, and you don't have to do it all the time, but at least you can adopt to what's important for you as an organization, and you keep on doing that, it's an ongoing thing, right? We always said it's infinite game. Yeah, it goes on and on. It doesn't stop or end anywhere.
Exactly. So if I bring that back to the autonomy, the sovereignty aspect, right? We talked about preparing. We talked about the minimum viable business, so to say. If I now had 98% of my IT estate, if I have that running in an American cloud, and I think a lot of our listeners they can relate to that, right? Is then the answer in general, look at your minimum viable business and ensure that at least the data that that you need to do your minimum viable business, that you can quickly get that to a, let's say, more local variant, or is that something to do, or does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it depends a bit the business you're in, of course. I've always been wary in exporting your data as far as possible because it's the cheapest way to store it. I've never thought that was a good approach to do. Of course, we are at this stage quite dependent on the big tech from the US. Let's be honest, most of the systems run on either of those platforms. I don't know yet if it's safe to get them away. It's definitely needed over time to bring it back to Europe. I think it's a bit the same as agriculture. Why do we subsidize agriculture? To have food when the other countries are cutting us off. Well, if data is the fuel of your IT, keep the fuel close to yourself.
Yeah, that's a nice one to put in the show notes. So I think we've actually lost our storyteller in the call. So what I would like to do, what we typically do after the bell, Koen, is that I ask the guests and the storyteller, and probably that's why he left, for a movie to watch, a series to read, a book to read, something like that, to help our listeners be more educated in the area. Any on top of mind areas to read or look at?
Well, I recently read 2 books. I post about it on LinkedIn. The first one was about enterprise architecture, architecture in action from Nick de Visser. He's a Dutch guy, but he lives in Belgium. He wrote a handbook on how architecture or enterprise architecture works in an organization. It's not a story that you have to read. And the second book, I was lucky enough to pre-read it. It was from Angela Trego, sorry. It's about the imposter syndrome, something all C-levels have faced, probably almost everyone have faced at one day, nothing to do with cyber or IT, but still I think it's important because these times demand courageous decisions, and the imposter syndrome will block us from courageous decisions. So I think it's definitely useful in
Good one to read.
in the situation we are in. The book comes out somewhere in February. I'll post it again on LinkedIn, but it was a good book.
Yeah.
Also sort of a handbook, but definitely good stories in there.
Very good. Very nice. All right. And I see our storyteller is back in our landscape, was disrupted a little bit, but adopted and is now back in.
Yeah, I think
in the
somebody is
podcast.
trying to stop me from telling the stuff that I want to tell the people.
So we hit the bell already, Quint, and I just asked Koen for a book or a series to watch and read. Anything to add to that?
No. I started looking at a television show which is Romanian and German. It's on, I think it's on Sky, and it's called Hackerville or something. I thought it was good until I started watching further, and I think it's not that good. But
Not
it's
that
it's.
good. Well, that's a
I
new
like
one.
watching
Something
shows
not to
about
watch.
cybersecurity anyway, so I keep on watching. Maybe it's still getting good, and
Maybe
I've
it
not seen it
improves.
yet. So
Or you get
no,
something out of it.
other
Yeah.
than that, I don't have anything to add, Menno.
All right. Then a very warm thank you for today's conversation. I think our listeners have learned a lot about how to process and what to do with the geopolitical changes, the changes in business and the changes in the environment that they face. So thank you for your insights, and we will post some of the highlights in the show notes as well. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.